Ignition can connect to PLC variables using multiple communication protocols. OPC UA is commonly used because it enables secure real-time data exchange and control across process variables. In this video, we show how to establish a connection to an OPC UA server running on the CODESYS runtime of iEx50 PLC. Ensure you already have an Ignition gateway instance running and accessible, and an OPC UA server that is properly set up on the same network as the gateway. To start with the setup, go to the Ignition Gateway webpage by browsing the gateway IP. In this case is the one shown in screen, with 8088 being the configured port when installing Ignition. Click on the config icon on the left bar, and click OPC Connections. Click on Create New OPC Connection, and select OPC UA as the connection type. Here, for the endpoint URL, type the IP address of the IE650, followed by its port. In this case, we are using the default port 4840. So the whole endpoint is shown as you see it on the screen. Click Next to proceed to Security Settings. Here you need to select the policy and mode that match the OPC server configuration. Continue with the default settings until finish. For authentication, you can use the username and password created during the initial PLC configuration in CODESYS. Alternatively, you may create a dedicated user with limited permissions for Ignition in CODESYS by going to the Users and Groups section in the device window. Under normal conditions, the next step would be to open the security section of the OPC configuration panel and manually trust the unrecognized certificate sent by the OPC UA server. However, in this case, the certificate generated by the CODESYS runtime is not recognized as valid by Ignition and will not be found in the untrusted list. This commonly occurs on certain PLC platforms running CODESYS. Because the certificate does not appear in the untrusted list and cannot be manually approved, you must open the advanced properties and temporarily disable certificate validation. This workaround allows the connection to proceed until a proper certificate fix is applied. You can now verify the connection status in the OPC connections list. Keep in mind that disabling certificate validation may expose the connection to security risks. This is a workaround for cases where the certificate generated by CODESYS for the PLC isn't recognized by Ignition. If a connected status is achieved, you can now browse the exposed symbols and add them as tags in your project. To do this, navigate to the Ignition Designer and go to the Tag Browser. Click on the plus icon at the top left to open the device browser. Expand the OPC UA connection you created to see the exposed variables. Depending on how variables are exposed by the server, via device set or symbol set, you will see different paths. These paths represent the variables that are now accessible to Ignition. Now you can integrate your PLC variables from CODESYS into Ignition and use them to control your process, historize data, and much more. To demonstrate this integration, you can refer to the example project. Here we read the tags exposed during the tutorial, and as shown on the left side of the screen, the values displayed in CODESYS match the tags in Ignition. Remember that to write values back from Ignition, the gateway must be configured for full read-write communication. We have now learned how to connect Ignition to an OPC UA server running on a CODESYS-ready IE650 PLC, including configuring the endpoint, matching security policies, handling certificate issues, and browsing exposed variables from the Ignition Designer. In some cases, tags may appear correctly generated but still show bad quality in the tag browser, or their values may stop updating. When this happens, first verify that the PLC application is actually running. You can do this by logging into the PLC in CODESYS, where a status label will indicate whether the application is stopped or running. If the issue persists, browse the tags again in the Ignition Designer. When making changes to the application, the node IDs can change compared to the previous configuration. You can also use UA Expert as an OPC UA client to inspect the currently exposed tags on the server. Simply connect to the endpoint and navigate the directory space until you locate the target tags. Other possible causes include network instability, which can lead to intermittent data loss, as well as high resource usage on the PLC, which may degrade its performance and affect data updates. These conditions require specific testing and troubleshooting, so they should be taken into account during diagnosis.